Was the Middle Ages a breeding ground for madness, or simply misunderstood? The rain in Oxford hammered against the stained glass windows of St. Mary's, mirroring the relentless drumming in Nicholas Trevet's skull. 1308. He was 28, a Dominican friar, and utterly, terrifyingly obsessed. Not with sin, not with salvation, though those played their part, but with Seneca. Specifically with the ghost of Seneca's tragedies haunting the English countryside. Trevet wasn't just reading, he was living them. He'd built a miniature Roman forum in his scriptorium, complete with crumbling columns and strategically placed cushions for contemplating the bleakness of fate. His patron, Cardinal Nicholas Albertini of Prato, a man who smelled perpetually of velvet and simmering political intrigue, had issued a blunt decree: produce a commentary, Trevet, a good commentary, one that explains these unsettling stories to the pious. Albertini, a whirlwind of Italian diplomacy and papal maneuvering, wasn't known for patience. He dispatched Trevet to Italy, promising him access to the finest libraries and, more importantly, the most discerning minds. Trevet had traded the damp English air for the sun-drenched chaos of Florence, a city overflowing with merchants, artists, and whispered secrets. Florence was a sensory assault. The scent of spices mingled with the stink of the Arno. The clang of blacksmiths competed with the soaring notes of troubadours. Trevet, a meticulous man, found it utterly overwhelming. He sought refuge in the Dominican friary, a haven of quiet contemplation, and began to translate Seneca's Medea and Trojan women into elegant Latin. He wasn't simply paraphrasing, he was reconstructing, reimagining the plays as if he'd witnessed them firsthand. He'd even started dressing the part, a dark, flowing robe, a heavy silver chain, and a perpetually mournful expression. Then came the letters from Italy, from Albertini. Filled with increasingly urgent requests, demands for revisions, and thinly veiled criticisms of Trevet's excessive emotionalism. The gods weep with you, Trevet, one particularly pointed missive read, but the reader should weep with reason. But Trevet wasn't interested in reason. He was captivated by the raw, visceral power of Seneca's tragedies. He saw in them a mirror reflecting the precariousness of human existence, the relentless march of time, the futility of clinging to earthly possessions. He believed Seneca wasn't merely depicting tragedy, he was offering a cure. A potent, melancholic medicine to purge the soul of its attachments. He discovered a parallel in Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy. Boethius, imprisoned and facing execution, had written a philosophy as a balm for the wounded spirit. Trevet, armed with this insight, began to weave a complex tapestry of thought, connecting Seneca's fables to Boethius' Consolations, linking them to the writings of Aristotle and Averroes. He argued that both men, these tragicii, were poets using art as a weapon against the chaos of the world. Meanwhile, across the Alps in Avignon, the papacy was embroiled in a theological war. Pope John XXII, a staunch defender of orthodoxy, was locked in a bitter struggle with the Spiritual Franciscans, a radical sect who preached poverty, prophecy, and a looming apocalypse. The spirituals, led by figures like Ubertino of Casil, were attracting a fervent following with their visions and apocalyptic pronouncements. They claimed to hear the voices of angels, to foresee the end of days, and to reject the comforts and distractions of the material world. John XXII saw them as a dangerous heresy, a threat to the established order. He dispatched inquisitors to track down and punish the spirituals, accusing them of sedition, witchcraft, and blasphemy. The conflict escalated, culminating in a series of dramatic trials and executions, and then a surprising connection emerged. Cardinal Albertini, obsessed with understanding the spirituals' apocalyptic fervor, turned to Trevet's commentary on Seneca. He believed that Seneca's exploration of fate, of the inevitability of death, offered a framework for understanding the spirituals' worldview. Trevet's analysis of Seneca's characters, Medea, Clytemnestra, Hecuba, who all succumbed to overwhelming grief and despair, resonated with Albertini's concerns. He saw in them a reflection of the spirituals' own belief in the impending doom of the world. Trevet, oblivious to the political machinations swirling around him, continued to refine his commentary. He added illustrations, meticulously drawn scenes from the plays, and elaborate footnotes explaining the philosophical and theological implications of Seneca's work. He delved into the lost on superstition, fragments of which were preserved in Augustine's writings, arguing that Seneca's wisdom offered a path to liberation from the tyranny of superstition and the allure of worldly goods. He found himself increasingly drawn to the concept of Carmen Luctuosum, a mournful song, a lament for the lost glories of Rome, a reminder of the fleeting nature of human existence. He realized that tragedy in its purest form wasn't merely a depiction of suffering, it was a form of prophecy, a warning against the dangers of hubris and the folly of earthly ambition. As Trevet's commentaries gained popularity in Italy, a strange phenomenon occurred. Humanist scholars eager to embrace the classical tradition began to incorporate Trevet's insights into their own studies. They admired his meticulous scholarship, his elegant prose, and his profound understanding of Seneca's work. But they also questioned his interpretations, challenging his claims about the therapeutic power of tragedy. In Padua, a young scholar named Albertino Massato, inspired by Trevet's work, began to write his own Senecan tragedy, a bold attempt to revive the lost art of dramatic poetry. Massato's play, a reimagining of Medea, was a sensation, attracting the attention of the papacy and sparking a heated debate about the nature of tragedy and its role in society. Trevet, meanwhile, remained in Oxford, a solitary figure immersed in his work. He continued to receive letters from Albertini, urging him to produce more commentaries and to defend his interpretations against his critics. He felt increasingly isolated, caught between the demands of his patron and the pull of his own convictions. One evening, as a storm raged outside his scriptorium, Trevet stumbled upon a passage in Seneca's epistles that seemed to offer a glimmer of hope. Seneca wrote that tragedy is a song, a mournful Carmen, a reminder that even in the face of despair, there is beauty to be found in the acceptance of fate. Trevet closed his eyes, listening to the rain, and realized that he had been chasing an illusion, the belief that he could conquer time, that he could escape the inevitable. But perhaps, he thought, the true wisdom of Seneca lay not in offering solutions, but in acknowledging the limitations of human existence. Was Trevet's obsession with Seneca a sign of madness, a descent into despair? Or was it a profound attempt to grapple with the fundamental questions of human existence, the nature of suffering, the meaning of life, the inevitability of death? Perhaps the answer lies not in seeking definitive answers, but in embracing the ambiguity, the melancholy, the haunting beauty of tragedy itself. And you, dear reader, are left with the unsettling question: can we truly escape the echoes of Seneca's tragedies, or are we forever destined to be haunted by the ghosts of Medea and Hecuba?